All right, y'all, let's do this thing. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. I don't know that we will have a week. Every time I say that, something else happens, but we won't have a week that we can anticipate being history making more than this week. Things going on internationally and, of course, here at home today. In just a couple of hours, we'll have the opening of a special session to consider redrawing the districts in Alabama based on the landmark ruling last week from the courts. I'm going to do my best to break that down into its simplicity as we move forward this afternoon. They will gavel in right in the middle of our show, and we'll dig into that pretty hard. We may not learn much today about the plan going forward for the rest of the week. What I hope we see are the maps that are being considered, and there's some scenarios as to how this will play out this week, and I will go through all those possibilities. We don't even know what the probabilities are right now because you just don't know if you can count on the legislature to be aggressive in this or to be somewhat passive. But we'll see. And they've got a chance this week to earn their reelections as we head into an election season. So the dynamic could not be more tense down in Montgomery this afternoon. I know some of them are heading down right now. We'll have plenty to say about it if y'all want the context from the actual people out here watching what you're doing down at the legislature this afternoon. Then, of course, we got all of this stuff going on with Iran developments as we speak in the Strait of Hormuz, as we've now changed into a different posture that's supposed to open up the strait. We're going to use the military to keep it open, and we got a whole name for the mission, and there's a huge dynamic playing along with that. Before I get into those details, which will also be developing we've got skirmishes and incidents starting to pop up in the strait to discuss. We'll talk about those this hour too as they develop. And so here we go with all that this week. The markets, of course, watching everything. And then the big thing, of course, this hour is Trump is scheduled to speak any minute now. The media are in the Oval Office. AJ, he's going to wreck our show again. I hope you're doing okay. Did you have a good weekend? Hope everything's good with you.
I was pretty busy, but I'm too blessed to be depressed.
Maybe the last time you and I get to talk the whole rest of the show because there's so much going on. By the way, thank you to my friend Allison and Amy Beth, who do their own podcast here in Alabama called Right Side Media. They had me over for an hour today. They don't broadcast very far from here. Do we still call it broadcasting? I guess it's podcasting. But it was really nice to hang out with them. They're old friends. They've guest hosted here on the show before in the past, and they just do a great job. So they had me in, and we talked about a lot of these same things. By the way, if you want to catch that, I told them I'd let folks know where to find it. They're Right Side Media. Right Side is one word, and you can get them all over the place. They're on, let's see if I got this up. They sent me a text to make sure I knew all the locations, but they're on X, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on Rumble, they're on Facebook, most of it all under Right Side Media if you want to check that out. We had a quick, sort of spirited hour discussion that's largely some of the stuff you and I talked about last week when we were on the air with all these developments, especially with the districting. And then, of course, we got into the Iran situation. And some of the things I told them, I'm going to actually be repeating. It's like my first chance to opine today was on the Right Side Media show. And I really haven't changed my mind in the last 2 hours since we're watching the developments. Again, I'll tell you what, while we're waiting on Trump, let me tee up. There's so much I want to do right now. Let me tee up the Iranian situation. We've got the whole afternoon to talk about the districts and what may or may not happen with all the speculation on that. So Team Trump has come up with a new name for the project, and here's generally what they're doing. You know, under the War Powers Act, the president can move troops and take action in defense of the country or in the country's interests without congressional approval. There's some congressional oversight, and we've not had a declared war since World War II. And so, just like other presidents, the president's using the military to affect this in the region. But at some point, they hit a day count where they've got to report back to Congress. And what I believe is happening here, and what I've read a little bit about today, is we're shifting the mission from an offensive mission where we went in with strikes and took out all their capability to a defensive mission. And let me explain how that is nuanced. So now that we have taken out their capability to hit us while we're in the region, the more effective thing that's happening to Iran right now is the embargo and the blockade of their ports by the United States military. And in that posture, rather than us being on an offensive posture, which we could obviously reassert anytime we want to, the president has declared a new mission. And this mission is Project Freedom. And generally, if you had to boil it down to its simplicity, we'll be escorting merchant ships of various nations through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, some folks have wondered, well, why are we just not doing that? We had to demine the strait. We had to try to negotiate something that would be an easier settlement. But I think the president's grown frustrated with the various entities that claim to be running Iran. We sort of dismantled them to the point where we're not sure who's legit and who to deal with or who will have authority. And remember, Iran broke into this mosaic strategy that they've long had if they were ever attacked. So they've got about, some believe 16, some believe 26 different regions that are under the control of more localized government. And they already have leftover armaments and drones and in some cases along the coast, fast boats. And those regions will act on their own no matter what's being negotiated at the table with the Trump administration. So rather than wait and let that play out, we're going to take a defensive posture, and that is this. We'll use our military to escort ships, and then if anything tries to attack those ships, we're going to blow it out of the water. That's not an offensive move. That's a protective move of the ships and of our military. So it's a little bit of a different posture. It may sound nuanced, but it has application in the law, and it's a different strategy, and it seeks to, of course, unblockade the ships that are stuck from both Iran's activity and our activity, and we're the good guys in the world. We're trying to get commerce, not just oil, but other commerce moving. There are ships that have been floating around out there since March, the beginning of March, and they're running out of supplies on those very ships and the ability to just sit there and float with their cargo. So what's been reported today are there have been 2 U.S. flag merchant type vessels that have now moved through the strait under military escort, and we're inviting other countries to bring their ships through as well. We have now blown, I think it's either 6 or 7, these so-called fast boats out of the water. Remember, with very low technology and very small, hard to spot small boats, the Iranians still have the capability of harassing these largely defenseless merchant vessels. And if you take an oil tanker, it's a floating bomb. So none of those people want to take a chance on anything incendiary. But now we're saying we'll do an escort. By the way, President Trump did the same. President Reagan had to do the same thing in the late 80s when Iran was threatening to choke off the strait. In those days, they had only been around about 10 years at that point, and they had already begun this kind of tactic. So we were able to handle this in the 80s. Surely, since we have decapitated all of their military, and by the way, we would not have been able to go in. I saw some idiot going, well, if this was Trump's plan, why didn't we do that to start with? You couldn't go in there and create a ship escort and do a blockade of the Iranian commerce machine without first taking out their air defenses and their military capability. And once you neutered them that way, they're left being terrorists, and they might as well be Somali pirates at this point with a rickety wooden boat and a small arm AK trying to take over a tanker, which was possible even in those days when you look at the low-tech way the Somali pirates got away with similar activity. So it's called Project Freedom. And again, we've blown about 6 boats out of the water, escorted 2, and it's on like Donkey Kong. So the president is about to speak. We presume he's going to talk largely about all this stuff here in just a little bit. It is a small business. The reason for the called news conference in Washington is it's some kind of small business issue that they're addressing, which is great. And we may tune into the beginning of that. What I'm really more interested in is when the president freestyles after that presentation and gets into what's happening in the strait. So again, naval escorts, hopefully that's going to be enough to start moving the logjam. Now, here's something else that's important. Both the Saudis and the UAE have now activated those pipelines. The UAE pulled out of OPEC a couple of weeks ago, so they're not limited in their production because of OPEC. And this is world chess right now. So if we can clear the logjam of commerce, we can still maintain the blockade of Iran, continue to choke off their ability to pay their military, to pay their police. And we're getting these weird reports this afternoon that the UAE and other Arab nations are about to, quote, declare war on Iran. What is that? What that is Iran's bad for their business and always has been. They come from different cultures. They do share a Muslim faith, but they even have different interpretations of that. And these are Arab cultures versus this Persian government. And they're about to actually move, we think, on Iran and to do some of the more offensive stuff that we were doing, because we've already loosened the lid on the fruit jar, right? We've already done the hard stuff. Now they want an end to this, and they're going to step up and do this themselves. They're doing, and if you were to ask me, they're doing what NATO refused to do. And that's come together as a world community to right these wrongs and get the Iranian regime moved out of the way. Fascinating turns of events and different players. I don't know if any of that UAE stuff's correct, but there are reports about it all over the place. I don't even know why they would telegraph that they were going to launch a war, but maybe it's just more of a pressure tactic. So, good Lord, do we have things to talk about? So there's that. There's the setup. We'll take the break, and then we'll go and try to see if we can keep the show on time. If the break crosses into Trump, we'll let the break finish, and then we'll go to the White House, because whatever the president says could be making headlines for the rest of the afternoon. Fascinating stuff in the news today. Your calls, too. I'll go ahead and be candid. Probably won't have a whole lot of time for calls till a little bit later in the show, but we'll get to those, of course, as we always do. 545-9950, 545-9950. Alabama Dental, first sponsor up today. That's my dentist. We all need a dentist. And maybe you just need what I have at Alabama Dental, and that's a little more flexibility with your hours. Sometimes, I mean, like today, I have been going since I got up. AJ was saying the same thing. We were talking before the show. Just been one of those days. And sometimes you just don't have time to even take care of yourself, especially if you're running kids around all the time. Some of y'all are running businesses. It gets stressful. Well, listen, Alabama Dental has Saturday hours. They even have late in the afternoon hours, as late as 7 o'clock at night. They can do this because it's a 4-dentist practice. And 4 dentists can stretch their hours out over a lot of time and make themselves available to you. Those 4 guys are all specialists in their different disciplines as well, which is amazing. So check them out at alabamadental.com. Take care of yourself. You'll get to know the whole team. Dr. Brian's my personal dentist there and my friend, and they just do such a remarkable job. A great staff around them too. Just the kindest people. Some people are nervous and just hate going to the dentist. They make it as easy on you as they can. They get you back out the door, and you'll be glad you went. It's alabamadental.com, alabamadental.com. We'll be back here in just a second, Leland Live. All right, let's get back at it. Leland Live here on this Monday. It's nice to not have to start with the weather today, but we do have a chance of some heavier storms coming through on Wednesday night. We'll get to that later in the show as they get the forecast refined. Lonnie's Furniture Company bringing you the show tonight. That's John and Reggie and that whole family. I guess now you can technically say they're in their 93rd year. I had started losing track, but they had the 92nd anniversary sale last week and this weekend. Incredible values all over that store all the time. It's one of those places where there's such good looking styles, and I'm not overselling it. When you go, you'll see everything in there just is according to their standards of high quality, good stuff, and then fair prices. And once you see it and you see how good it looks and how good it feels, then you look at the price tag, you'll go, hey, that's a good price. And they keep it that way because it all starts with knowing how to buy at the markets and get the good stuff, get the latest things people want in their homes, buy it in bulk because they can handle it. You got to have a big operation to move that much weight and that much furniture. And so they're able to do that. And when they can buy like that, they can sell like that. And that's good for all of us. So then we get the benefit of all that bulk purchasing because we got lots of options. And then they have their standards of good stuff and always a lot of it. And their buyers also have good taste. That's a big deal to both be a small town, low pressure store, but be on the higher end of luxury and taste. So they know what people are, what's trending, what people want, what the updated styles are. So there's a little something for everybody at Lonigan's always. I can't wait. We just got a couple of small pieces to get from them to finish out a project later in the summer. And I know I'll find what I'm looking for. I'm not even sure what I want yet. Sometimes I'll just go there. The last time I bought something from Lonigan's, I just knew I needed sort of a foyer table. So I decided I'll just walk around until I see something. And I did about 5 laps and I'd walk past this one piece all 5 times. And there it was. Suddenly it jumped out at me. And I was so glad I waited and browsed and got ideas. That's how you do it. So much to look at. Almost an acre of furniture under one roof. LoniusFurnitureCompany.com. LAUNIUS, LoniusFurnitureCompany.com. Okay. Let's flip to the reapportionment, the redistricting, the map wars, as I've come to call them, because this is not just about Alabama, and this is not just about Shamari Figures or Terry Sewell or anything like that. We are in a, and I mean this from my heart, we are in a national battle for the direction of this country. The Democrats have lurched off into some insidious stuff. And if the Republicans mean business, they have to be aggressive in this map redrawing because the Democrats didn't ask for any. They didn't apologize whatsoever when they were going into courtrooms the last 20 or 30 years and doing the exact same thing, drawing the map to their advantage. This is about votes in Congress. This is about how we survive what could be some of the craziest stuff you've ever seen. Now, there are 2 scenarios this afternoon, and we don't know which will win out. There is one called the 6-1 scenario, and there is a 7-0 scenario. That would be with the Republicans being fully in charge, backed by a new Supreme Court ruling. What they're waiting on is clarity from the federal courts that anything they do this week can be enacted. They're going to go ahead and get a jump on it. The Democrats believe it's a folly, that they're going to get refused by the courts, and we'll be stuck with these 2 racially drawn maps. I can't imagine that's even the case. Courts are political, but we'll see. So the Attorney General has gone this afternoon and filed again with the 11th Circuit for some relief. There was a filing directly to the Supreme Court last week. Now we've got this 11th Circuit filing. It's probably a good strategy because if I'm not mistaken, the 11th Circuit just gave some relief to Georgia with the very simple reading of the new landmark case. And they basically told Georgia, you have to ensure the maps are constitutional. So if you're arguing about this with anyone, a Democrat, somebody else, about how these districts are drawn, this isn't about people's civil rights. This isn't about taking a district from a particular person. For example, Terry Sewell is the one most in question because Shamari Figures is going to be done in Congress if these maps are, he can run. Both of them, all of them, Gary Palmer, all of them can run in the new districts. Terry Sewell can run again. She just can't just be black and run. She's going to have some ideas and appeal to a larger group of people if that district is not drawn to her favor. And same thing applies with Shamari can run as well. He seems to be a super nice guy. He can run. The Voting Rights Act, as we explained repeatedly last week, does not guarantee the outcomes of elections. That's not what it says at all. The court reaffirmed that. It didn't gut civil rights. It didn't throw out the Voting Rights Act. It threw out a bastardized interpretation of that act, which, by the way, the Constitution is not just a congressional law. It's the Constitution, and it calls for a race-blind society. That's the only way to have fairness and equal protection under the law. It should be that way in the courts. It should be that way in elections. So the way you argue it when you're talking to somebody is just, we deserve constitutional maps. It isn't really about black or white. It's the Constitution. You either draw the maps in a lawful way or you don't. And the way they're construed right now were not drawn lawfully. They were a violation of the Constitution by considering race first. You can consider race. You can consider geography. You can consider economies. You don't want to break up economic communities for a false standard. And that's what they've got to deal with down in Montgomery. So will they draw a 7-0 map, which has been floating around, and there's a version of it, or a 6-1? There's one scenario that a lot of insiders believe could be the case. One chamber passes a 6-1 map. The other chamber passes a 7-0 map. Then that has to go to conference committee between the Senate and the House. The committee will pick one of those maps. It could be the 7-0 map. Then they come back and gavel it through. That's a quick process, and it leaves limited time for people to just get on bullhorns and roll around in the floor and act like this is the end of the world. It's not. Every voter in the state will be able to vote in the congressional elections. Then there's the question of when will the primaries be for the House. They have not suspended the election. I guess there's an assumption that within a week they could redraw the maps. They could win in the federal court some clarity based on the decision, and then run these maps through and still get candidates requalified in time to run in 2 weeks. That just seems impractical. Now, it could be they address that during the session as well. They put off the districts. That could also include the Alabama Senate. I don't know how far they'll go. We'll get some framework of that when they gavel in at 4 today, because I think that'll be our first chance to see the proposed maps. They can't be tweaking the lines and arguing over tiny issues to get this done in 5 days. The Republicans have to have a map ready to go, or maybe 2 maps, and we'll see which way they go. Are they going to fight and be part of this national battle to save the country? Are they going to give a rubber stamp vote to the 7th district for all of the bad things that have been happening? More on that when we come back. Leland Live, bottom of the hour. All right, y'all, 2:34, man. With all that good weather this weekend, I got a lot of projects done. It made me think about this deal they've got over at Hueytown Pond with these Laramore trailers. They're made here in Alabama. These are utility trailers, single action, open trailers, foldable ramp, all the stuff you want in a small sort of utility trailer just to get stuff done. I'm always seeing people. It tickles me when I go to the sort of the big hardware stores and the supply stores. What people will try to cram into a SUV or in a minivan if you don't have a truck, or even if you have a truck, just trying to improperly load things on that bed. It's just funny to watch how people do things. These little trailers here solve all that for you. If you need a lawnmower, go get it. If you want to haul some stuff to the dump, take off. They are so functional and easy to store. They've got them for you at Hueytown Pond right now. I know we normally talk about their gun stock, but Tommy reached out and said, man, I got a deal on these trailers and I want to put them on sale. Can we talk about that? I was like, sure, man. Whatever a deal is, we all love deals. So go see them, and they've got financing for you too, where they can get you hooked up and out the door, and you got your own little trailer to get stuff done. One of my neighbors has one. I spotted it the other day, and I'm actually considering one myself, even though I got a larger trailer. That thing is so cumbersome. For example, one of my sons needed to go pick up a washer and dryer this weekend. Would have been great to have a smaller trailer for that. I didn't need to drag that huge double axle out for a small project like that. So consider it. And again, the lowest one is $14.99. It is Hueytown Pond, Brook Lane Drive, Hueytown Pond. All right, we're still waiting on the president to enter the room. Everything's been on hold there for about an hour. As you can imagine, he's probably getting the latest updates on all the newest military mission in the Strait of Hormuz. We went through some of that already this year. We're assuming here in just a few minutes, the president's going to give us some commentary to that. So we look forward to see his disposition and the Q&A as it relates to that. So many other things in the news today, too, that we'll get to. And, of course, we're waiting on the session to kick off with the special session of the legislature. And by the way, one more note on that, or maybe 10 more notes on that. My mind just keeps going back to it. This session would not be going on if there hadn't been alarm bells all over the state and people sincerely having to beseech the governor and some very, very poor legal advice that she got to punt on a session before it could even be explored. And now I think largely because Steve Marshall's running for Senate, his wannabe protege, Catherine Robinson, wants his job. She's part of the AG's responsibility here, I would assume. Same thing with Wes Allen, Secretary of State. He's running for lieutenant governor. All these people have higher ambitions. And so they saw the fact that there was going to be a rebellion in the Republican primary if they didn't at least attempt to right the ship and do the right thing with the new constitutional, really it's the old constitutional standard on how we draw districts. We have been bullied and harassed in court and blackmailed by these folks going around gerrymandering these districts. And let me address that word too. Sometimes I forget what I said on Allison and Amy Beth's show and what I've already said here, because I thought I'd explain this today, but I did it on their show. I saw some left winger on AL.com this morning referring to the new plan as gerrymandering, and they're just using the word. And these people are smart enough to know what that word means. Gerrymandering is what was done to us with these racially drawn districts. It's when you take a region and you draw these long extensions and fingers into direct neighborhoods and try to create something that doesn't naturally exist. It's an unnatural shape. The new maps that have been proposed, both the 6-1 map and the 7-0 map, are all contiguous districts in defined areas, communities of interest. And that is a phraseology that the Supreme Court has used in previous cases, where when you go and divide a city or a county that has its own identity and economic interest, just for this racial standard, then you've discriminated against everybody in that community by dividing it. It's segregation. I explained it last week. As much as people would like to see it as some kind of right to have an outcome of who's in Congress, you don't have a right to an outcome. You got a right to participate in the outcome. You have a right to go vote. You have a right to run. And the government can't prevent you from doing that based on your race, but it can't hand you an outcome based on race. You see what I mean? It can't do anything for you or against you using race. It's race neutral. That's the Constitution. It's always been the Constitution. Well, since the 14th Amendment. And so we got clarity on that, and now we have a chance to draw districts. Now let's just talk about in practical terms, outside the philosophy about how the Constitution works. This is the practical result of what's happening right now. Congress is roughly divided 50-50, both chambers. It's marginal, very marginal. The odds of the United States Senate, the Republicans maintaining control of the Senate, have gone way up in the last few days because of a lot of things that are happening on the ground in races on the ground. And so all that's very important. And there's also this prospect too that Fetterman is going to flip. He's showing a lot of signs that he's rejecting his own party now. I don't know. There are a lot of stuff he believes that's not congruous with Republicans, but he seems to be the only reasonable person on their side. Some people are estimating if Fetterman flips and the races go as they're polling right now, because there's a pickup opportunity in Michigan, that if they go that way, the Republicans could wind up with 54 votes in the Senate. Because when you're dealing with the Republican Party, you can't just have an extra vote or two and think you have a majority. You always have flakes. Look at John Cornyn, who's fighting for his life in Texas. Look at this jackass, Cassidy, from down in Louisiana just last week, stopping the Surgeon General appointment. The Republicans always have weak-minded sellouts among them, and you got to have enough pad in there to survive that kind of nonsense. Even every now and then Rand Paul goes wobbly. You don't have cohesion on their side. Let's flip the script. Let's go to the House. On the Democrat side, you do have cohesion. They stick together. So what does that mean for our districts and, say, Terry Sewell's district? Terry Sewell is, I'm sure the black community is very proud to have Terry Sewell as their congressperson. Everybody I know that knows her likes her. It's not personal at all. It's about politics. It's about the results of our elections. But she is a rubber stamp vote for every bad socialist dumb thing that has come down the pike in the last years that she's been in that Congress. Rubber stamp. So if you're in the 7th district, does she vote for your interest when she votes to allow more illegals into this country without any checks whatsoever, as they come here and absorb social services and take away from the actual native citizens, real American citizens, are black and white voters in her district, as she puts the priorities of illegals over us? That's not in the interest of people in the 7th district. Here's another example. Do you remember when she was voting? Rubber stamp now, because this is what they do. They decided this is the anti-Trump move. We're going to vote this way. So she just does it like a robot. She was voting to shut down the Coast Guard funding during the funding wars, while it was being announced that the Coast Guard was going to buy the old Birmingham Southern campus in her district. So the Republicans funded the Coast Guard, made the deal with the Birmingham Southern, improved that part of her district. Now there's life there on that dead campus. She was voting to cut the funding, but that ran right in front of the TV cameras the minute there was a ribbon to be cut or an announcement to be made, applauding the effort. So y'all see what I mean? We're in a battle right now. In the biggest picture of things, our country and our way of life and this Constitution that dedicates itself to freedom in this country is in a battle with communism and socialism, and in some ways, Islamism, all at the same time right now. These are all ideologies that seek to destroy us, to tear that down. They are not consistent. The belief system of a socialist or a communist or any of these people that want to control your life, their beliefs are not consistent with the United States Constitution at all. They don't believe in those things. They believe in government. They believe in central power, central control, and redistributing resources from one person to another. They believe in theft. The Democrat Party has now given itself over to that. There's a whole generation of kids that believe that this worn out, dead, tired, failed concept of socialism, Marxism, communism. By the way, Das Kapital and the invention of Marxism was written by two guys that never had a job. That supposedly represent the working class. They never had a job. They're like Mamdani. These elites that have never done anything productive will come out with these ideas that ultimately fail everybody that tries them. Okay, let's back things back down into Alabama. We're in a battle against that right now, and it's 50-50. These radicals are being elected in mayors in heavily Democrat cities. We are 2 or 3 votes on any vote away from losing efforts in Congress. And any attempt to allow them power, those people should not be allowed near any power in this country. They will destroy us. It'll be the end of every positive thing that's happened the last almost 2 years under Trump. It'll be the end of it. His whole agenda will be paralyzed with fake impeachments and the same stuff we've dealt with the last 10 years. And Terry Sewell, even though I don't think she's in her heart a communist, I've never heard her say things like that, but she'll vote with them. If she's told to vote with them, she'll vote with them. She'll vote for shutdowns. She'll vote to not fund things. She'll vote to keep the border open. She'll vote for weak crime laws. She'll vote to oppose trade deals that have already helped us and started revitalizing industry, even in her own district. This is why the redistricting is so important. If you just, and it doesn't matter if it's her, anybody in a district drawn that way is going to vote in a rote fashion for the Democrat agenda because they're good at sticking together. And whoever you stick in there, if they've got an advantage, if they're given a tactical advantage to vote against the interests of the people of this state, they'll do it. So that's why the districts matter. On top of them being constitutional, if you draw them correctly and quit putting these little gerrymandered districts all over the place and satisfying people's emotional needs, if they're drawn fairly, then you got a chance for voters in their district to actually be represented. You know what it also means? It also means you would put more black voters in some of these Republican districts. And guess what? These Republican incumbents have to be more responsive to their black voters. They can't just write off the issues and things that the black community needs or wants to talk about because there are no black people in their district. Right now, you're getting outvoted 7-1 on every vote. But you got a chance to influence who goes to Congress if that vote is part. In other words, if communities are voting on their interests. Let me give you this example again. And this is all philosophical stuff, but I think it's important. If you're in Dothan, if you live in Dothan, if you're black or white, you have greater interests together because you live in Dothan than you do because of your race. You have a great interest in the economy of Dothan and the things that make that region important to this country. Same thing if you're in Mobile. Your interests are a healthy shipping industry and a healthy fishing industry and a healthy economy with the farm things that they do down in the first district. So if it doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, how old you are, any of that, if you're lesbian or trans, you can be whatever identity you want, but you've got things that are important in your area or you don't feed your family. So all these things are important. And I think what I would say to anybody that's about to vote on this stuff is we're in a war. Alabama has a role in that war. It's a metaphorical term, but to save and to preserve the Constitution of this country, the Democrats have chosen to be against it. They have chosen that nationally. They've chosen it through the candidates they're putting up and the ideologies they're embracing and the stupid policies that they've put forth. They've got to be stopped. Alabama cannot play a role by sending with an unconstitutional district to the United States Congress another rubber stamp vote for that agenda. It'd be irresponsible for the Republicans, who are all up for re-election, by the way, this year. And we're going to remember this stuff. It'd be irresponsible for them to hand the Democrats another vote in Congress, considering what they're up against. Just saying, that's not even partisan. That is a real confrontation that's going on in this country right now. And the Democrats will steal every district they can get. Look what they just attempted to do in Virginia. They don't play fair. You go to New England, there ain't a single damn Republican in the whole Congress from all of New England. And it votes 40% Republican. Why is that? They just vote that way. It's not a race issue. That's a policy issue. Republicans there still get to vote. They can run for office. Their prospects are different, but Democrats don't mind it in the sections of the country that they control. All right, that's enough. Trump's up. I'm going to go to the break so we don't get too far behind. It'll take him a minute to make his announcements and do the things he's doing. You get a sense he's going to be talking about some of these other big picture things. This is a small business summit, which could go on for a long time, so we're not going to give the whole show over to it. Leland Live, Talk 99.5, Alabama Gold Refinery also bringing you the show tonight. AGR over in Homewood, if you got gold, silver, or platinum, and you want to buy, sell, or trade, Steve will do it with you in a fair way, in a safe way. Great location. I feel like it's an education in there. You kind of learn how the whole system works. You can do it with complete anonymity and privacy in cash. It's a great little shop to get fair value as the markets do what they do. They say it's smart to have some of this in your portfolio, and I believe it, against inflation or any other dumb thing that can happen to us. It's AlabamaGoldRefinery.com, AGR, AlabamaGoldRefinery.com. Back here in just a minute. All right, every bit of the stuff I've been talking about the last 45 minutes is all stuff we're paying for right out of our wallets. The government wants their money. If you're dealing with the IRS right now, maybe you filed an extension, or maybe this is even stuff from previous years where the IRS got into your kitchen and started cooking, and they want their money, and they start freezing your life and intimidating you and threatening you with all this stuff. You can make that stop with Perry Cronin and Axiom Tax Resolution Group. 205tax.com, 205tax.com. Perry's an expert, and he's right here in Birmingham. He's local, which means you can sit down with him in person, face to face. You're not having to deal with just total random strangers from some TV ad. He knows more about this than anybody in this country, and he'll get you worked out. He can get you a settlement, make the harassment stop, maybe even as much as 80% off what you owe with the Fresh Start Initiative. Perry's good. He's really good, and you'll appreciate his advice and his hard work to get you some relief so you can sleep again. Nobody wants to feel like they're being threatened by their own government. It's Axiom Tax Resolution Group. Again, 205tax.com is the phone number. The local, well, that's the website, 205tax.com. The phone number is 205-872-1100. Y'all reach out to Perry and sit down with him and let him help. All right, the president's now getting into sort of the meat of his speech. AJ, we'll take this, probably take it up to the top and then take a break and come back and see what else he's doing this afternoon. A lot going on in the world, and he's at the center of it. Here's Trump right now in the White House talking to small businesses.
We have very friendly competition, but it'll be a very important trip. We provided 100% expensing and bonus depreciation, which is tremendous. One of the biggest things that you have. I mean, it's people have no idea how big that is. The businesses do, so that businesses can deduct 100% of the cost of new facilities, equipment, and capital investment in the first year. It used to take 38 years of deduction. Now you get it done in one. You can take one, so you can expand. I think that's what made us so successful in the first term. But now we have it for a 10-year period, so you have it for a while. really was going to make it for a 1-year period. That would mean you spend all your money immediately. Now, unfortunately, I gave you too much time. I was sort of against that. I said, let's do it for a shorter period of time, but we did it. It's the right thing. And this way, when I get out of office in, let's say, 8 or 9 years from now, I'll be able to use it. I'll be able to use it myself. And to ensure that you and your family can keep your businesses in the family, we virtually eliminated the unfair estate tax or death tax for farmers and for small businesses. So, you know, oftentimes you build, I mean, I just met some incredible people. They have beautiful businesses, small businesses. They want to have their children. Those businesses were all long-term. It was, the father was there, right? We're just talking about with the beautiful pretzels. I said, pretzels, oh, those look good. I wanted to take some right now, but I didn't want to be rude and rip your bag apart. But the businesses they've been in business for a long time, almost every one of them. And you pass away, you want to have your children take over your business, they work in your business, and they got hit with the state tax, or we call it the death tax, but we call it both. It does the same thing. And they couldn't afford it. They went out, they take the business, they mortgage it up to pay the tax, and they end up losing the business. They end up going bankrupt. They end up, in many cases, committing suicide. We have a lot of that. You have a lot, especially farms, you know. They want to be on that farm. They don't want to lose their farm. And it's land rich and cash poor. And they go out and they borrow and keep borrowing. We ended that. No more estate taxes on farms and small businesses. So I hope everyone's appreciative of it. Now, if you don't like your children, it doesn't mean anything. But if you do like to leave them to somebody that you love, then it's a big deal for them. You have other problems, but for them, it's a big deal. And I want to say thanks to these tax cuts. 12 million American small businesses got an average tax cut of over $7,000, and our pass-through deduction alone is delivering an average of $4,600 in savings to 8 million entrepreneurs, and is projected to generate $750 billion in economic growth for the country. So many, it's really amazing. I see it on the television. I don't call this fake news because this is real fake news, but when you look at some of the things that have taken place, we don't get covered correctly. But in terms of the truth, we're having $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $11,000 with no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And people are making sometimes 11. I mean, I've seen it just where they're asking people virtually on the street, how is it doing? And everyone's surprised, including me. I didn't know it was going to be as much, but I knew it was going to be a lot. But you have people that make an extra $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a year between the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime is a big one. It's a big one. But the no tax on tips was great. I won the. You know, typically, I don't know why. I can't imagine people voting for the other side with their policies on everything beyond this, long beyond this. But we won Nevada by a lot, and typically Democrats win that state. And no tax on tips. A lot of people getting tips in Nevada, so it had a big impact on people, and much bigger than they thought. And they're just now starting to realize how big and how really wonderful the great big beautiful, I call it the great big beautiful bill is, because we really. All
right, so Trump, you get kind of a tenor of what he's doing, making his pitch to the small business community. We'll keep monitoring this and probably go back to it next hour if he takes questions, or if he talks more about this new disposition with the Strait of Hormuz. Busy news day, busy. Allen & Company bringing you the day as well, and I do appreciate them being available to you to make beautiful things for you and yours as you're going about your business and doing Mother's Day and graduation season around the corner. Some people already have those graduates. Go do something special at Allen & Company and have your own personal jeweler. Once you get to know them, you'll know what I mean. They're there to take care of all of your sizings and cleanings and refittings and custom designs, and it's just a wonderful family, the Thompsons. Right there on Highway 31 on the main drag near the car wash in Vestavia, Allen & Company. All right, quick break. We'll go to the 1819 news and come on back. Leland Live, Talk 99.5.